In the year 897, a pope put his predecessor on trial. The defendant had been dead for 7 months. Tonight, 4 men who held the most powerful religious office in the Western world, and 4 stories the Vatican has spent centuries hoping you'd forget. A corpse on trial, a palace turned brothel, a papacy sold for gold, and a family that turned the Holy See into a business.
Let's go back in time and see what happened.
Rome, the late 9th century. The papacy has become less a spiritual calling than a political prize, fought over by noble families and warring factions. And the man about to stand trial is already dead.
Pope Formosus served as Bishop of Rome from 891 to 896, navigating one of the most politically volatile stretches in papal history. A period so chaotic, historians simply call it the Iron Age of the papacy. He died of natural causes in April 896. That should have been the end of his story. It wasn't. His successor's successor, a man named Stephen VI, had his own reasons to want Formosus discredited, including, by some accounts, a simple technical problem. Stephen had been made a bishop by Formosus in a way that violated church law, and invalidating Formosus's papacy retroactively solved that problem. So Stephen ordered the previous pope's body dug out of its tomb. Formosus's corpse, 8 months decomposed, was dressed in full papal vestments and propped up on the papal throne. A terrified young deacon was assigned the impossible task of speaking in the dead man's defense. Stephen personally acted as prosecutor, shouting accusations of perjury and illegal ascension directly at the corpse. Contemporary accounts describe an earthquake striking Rome partway through the proceedings, shaking the basilica itself. The kind of detail that made even people at the time wonder if they'd gone too far. Formosus, unsurprisingly, was found guilty. His papacy was declared invalid. The 3 fingers he'd used for blessings were cut from his hand, and his body was stripped of its vestments and thrown into the Tiber River. Here's the twist history doesn't always mention. The Roman public was horrified. Riots broke out. Stephen VI was arrested within months and strangled to death in prison. Within 2 years, 2 separate church councils had annulled the entire trial, ordered its records destroyed, and reburied Formosus with full honors in St. Peter's Basilica. They even passed a new rule afterward, banning any future trial of a corpse, which tells you this wasn't a hypothetical concern anymore.
6 decades later, a different pope earned a reputation so scandalous that even centuries of church historians have struggled to fully rehabilitate him.
John XII became pope in 955 at around 18 years old, installed largely through his powerful father's political maneuvering. Almost immediately, contemporary chroniclers began describing a papacy that looked nothing like anyone's idea of spiritual leadership. According to Lateran of Cremona, the primary chronicler of the period, John gambled while invoking pagan gods, ordained a 10-year-old boy as a bishop, and effectively converted the papal residence into something resembling a brothel. He stands accused, in the surviving records, of everything from simony to incest to murder. I have to give you an important caveat here. Liutprand wasn't a neutral observer. He worked directly for Emperor Otto I, who had every political reason to want John discredited after their alliance fell apart. Modern historians widely agree some of the most lurid details were almost certainly exaggerated for political effect. But even scholars who've tried to defend John's reputation generally concede that enough independently corroborated behavior remains. The gambling, the mistresses, the neglect of his spiritual duties. To conclude, he was, at minimum, spectacularly unsuited for the role. His death added one final scandal to the pile. According to Liutprand, John died during an affair with a married woman, possibly struck down by her enraged husband, or by a stroke brought on in the moment. The sources disagree on the exact mechanism, though not on the general shape of the story. He was still in his 20s.
If John XII set a low bar, our third pope managed something no one before or since has matched. He didn't just disgrace the office, he sold it.
Theophylactus of Tusculum became Pope Benedict IX in 1032, likely around 20 years old, installed through his father's bribery of Roman officials. He would go on to hold the papacy across 3 separate, non-consecutive periods, the only person in history to do so. His first term ended when Roman factions, fed up with what contemporaries described as violent and licentious conduct, drove him out and installed a rival. Benedict simply returned with an armed force and took the throne back. But it's what happened next that makes him genuinely unique in papal history. In 1045, wanting to marry his own cousin and step away from church politics entirely, Benedict agreed to resign, in exchange for payment. His godfather, a priest named John XII, paid him the modern equivalent of a small fortune in gold and became Pope Gregory VI. It was, functionally, the sale of the papacy itself. Benedict quickly regretted it. Within a year, he'd reclaimed the throne by force, creating a bizarre situation where 3 different men simultaneously claimed to be the legitimate pope, forcing the Holy Roman Emperor himself to cross the Alps and sort out the mess. All 3 were declared illegitimate. A 4th man, a German bishop, was installed as Pope Clement II instead, and died less than a year later of what modern toxicological analysis conducted on his remains centuries later confirmed was lead poisoning. Contemporaries suspected Benedict. It's never been proven, but he did, predictably, seize the opportunity to reclaim the papacy a 3rd time. His 3rd reign lasted less than a year before imperial troops drove him out for good. He died in obscurity a few years later, though even that detail is disputed, with some later accounts claiming he spent his final years in penance at a monastery, quietly trying to undo the reputation his own choices had built.
Our final pope didn't need to sell the papacy. His family simply treated it as theirs to begin with.
Rodrigo Borgia became Pope Alexander VI in 1492, after what many contemporaries believed was one of the most openly bought elections in papal history. Cardinals allegedly rewarded with mules loaded down with silver in exchange for their votes. He was, by that point, already the father of at least 7 acknowledged children, including 2 names you may already know from this channel: Cesare and Lucrezia Borgia. Unlike John XII or Benedict IX, Alexander didn't operate through scandal so much as through open, deliberate strategy. He installed his own children in positions of extraordinary power: Cesare as a cardinal and then a feared military commander. Lucrezia married 3 times for pure political advantage. The papal states, under Alexander, functioned less like a spiritual institution and more like a hereditary monarchy his family fully intended to keep in the family. The most notorious accusation against him, a lavish, sexually explicit gathering later nicknamed the Banquet of Chestnuts, comes from a single hostile diarist, and historians remain divided on how literally to take it. What isn't disputed is simpler and, in some ways, more damning. Alexander spent his papacy consolidating wealth and territory for his own bloodline, using the church's resources and authority as a family business. in ways so brazen that even Renaissance-era observers, no strangers to corrupt clergy, considered it remarkable.
A corpse on trial, a palace turned brothel, a papacy literally sold for gold, a family that ran the church like an inheritance, 4 men spanning 6 centuries, who held what was supposed to be the most sacred office in Western Christendom, and 4 reminders that the institution survived, not because every man who led it was worthy of it, but in spite of the fact that so many, very publicly, were not. Tell me which of these 4 you'd never heard of before today. And if you want the deep dive on the rest of the Borgia family, comment down below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.